Thank you, everybody here. I have been listening to Michael's Sovereign Nation and watch a lot of his production on YouTube for a long time. So I'm so honored to be invited here as a speaker for this conference. And today, I'm going to talk about history. As you have heard from the previous speakers, it is so important to know about history. In 2020, when the BMMers and Antifa took over our city and terrorized our communities, many Americans was shocked. And then what happened? What happened to our country? They have this big question because they never seen anything like this. But for people like me and like Lily, we know right away. We know the history. We lived through the history. What happened in 2020 is exactly what happened to us more than 50 years ago. That's the importance of knowing history. To know history is to understand what's going on today. And what's going on today is the repeat of the Chinese Cultural Revolution. So that's my topic. But in order to understand Mao's Cultural Revolution, I have to go back a little further, before the Cultural Revolution. Because the Cultural Revolution is not a unique, isolated incident that took place in the Chinese history. There are many, many things that happened before it that leads to it. So I will start earlier and will go after the Cultural Revolution to give you a full picture and help you to understand what it is, really what it means. Okay, next. So let me tell you a little bit of myself. And growing up in China, I was told, as all our generation were told, we were lucky to be born in New China and grew up under the red flag. That's not my choice. My parents, they chose communism. They joined the revolution, and then they helped to take over China. I did not make the choice. As many of the young people today in America, they choose communism over capitalism. I, like Lily, we were born into the slavery of communism. That's what happened to us. I grew up knowing nothing but communism. My brain was filled with indoctrination because I have no access to anything else. My young life started in Cultural Revolution. My earliest memory was Cultural Revolution. I was in first grade when Cultural Revolution started, and the 10 years of Cultural Revolution was my school years. After graduating from high school, I was sent to the countryside to work in the fields with the peasants, doing primitive work, just like all the other urban youths, to be re-educated by the peasants. And after Mao's death, when Deng Xiaoping took over China, finally, he opened a university, and I was lucky. At the age of 19, I was able to go to college. And after that, I was fortunate to get a student visa to come here for my graduate study in 1986. So I have been here since then. And I just love this country. And I'm just fighting with all our friends to save this country, because this is such a special gift to the entire humanity. Next. So I will start back to the early days after communists took over. And I will go through the major events that lead into the Chinese Cultural Revolution. One of the first political campaigns that the CCP launched after they took over the power and took over China in 1949 was the Land Reform Campaign. It is a very important campaign because it is during this campaign that the identity politics in China was codified. What is the Land Reform Campaign? It was the campaign to fulfill the CCP's promise to the poor peasants that they will get free land. They are not going to just get free land, but they have to struggle, a bloody, bloody struggle to get the land from the landowners. And in the process, up to 2 million landlords were killed. And what happened in that campaign is China, for the first time in its 3,000 history, people were divided into two classes, red class and the black class. Red class were the people who are the allies of the revolution. Black class were the landowners, property owners, the wealthy people. And they were the enemy of the state. And everyone would know what class you belong to. If you belong to the black class, the class is hereditary. You're going to pass it on to your children and your children's children. And you are deemed as the enemy of the state and second-class citizen. You lose automatically many, many of the basic rights. Okay, so in any of the government papers, you are required to fill in this important question, like here in the United States, when you fill in a paper government document, you usually will say what race, right? Whatever, give you choices. There is two choices. What's your class origin, black or red? So from that time on, everyone has identity you carry with you, and they determine how your status in the society and your future. But it's not static. It's not like you're red and you're red, you're black, you're black. No. In the very beginning, black class were consisted of two: property owners, basically landlord, and rich peasants. But that's just the very beginning. It expanded and expanded and expanded. By the time of the Cultural Revolution, there are hundreds of labels that will put you in the black class, and including made-up labels. Okay, and being red is not always safe, that you're always red. No. Mao believed anyone who belonged to the red class could be influenced by the bourgeois poison ideology and become corrupted in your thinking. So you can fall into the black class if you're not careful. So being red, you have to constantly study and Marxist and Mao's instruction to make sure you don't think differently than what you are instructed to. So this is fluid. Many people fall into the black class, and including Xi Jinping, the dictator of China. His father was condemned as a counterparty bad element. When he fell into the black class, his whole family fell with him, and they lost their privileges, and they were really persecuted by the Red Guard. I just want to show you, everybody worried that you want to keep your red status. You do everything you can so that you are always on the right side. And that is also, the red class is considered the people. The word, the very word people was reserved for the red class. If you fell into the black class, and you just enemy, you're not part of the people. Humanity was taken away from you. And that became the basic operating operating system for the CCP going forward. Next. Following the land reform, land were given to the poor peasants. Okay, so everyone was happy for a while, not for long. Following that, Mao launched another very important campaign. It's called Let 100 Flower Bloom. Sounds really good, right? He wants everybody outside the CCP to make suggestions, constructive suggestions to the CCP to help them to improve their work. And especially intellectuals. The CCP want to hear the feedback from them. Many were just too naive. They fell for it, and then they speak up. And of course, one of the most important issues that raised is free speech, that CCP should allow people to talk freely. Well, soon after the launch of that campaign, Mao turned it into an anti-rightist campaign. More than 1 million intellectuals were labeled as the rightist. Immediately, you become part of the black class. They were exiled to labor camp. Many did not survive. So what this campaign did was it criminalized free speech. Free speech is banned. Not only that, they also criminalized right-wingers. So being a rightist, now you are part of the black class. So we're here, we're all rightist. So, right, we're all rightists here. And so, in fact, we're all part of the black class, according to CCP's, their plan. Okay, next. After free speech is silenced, right-leaning thought were criminalized. Mao launched one of the next major campaign. It's called the Three Banner Campaign. It consists of three things. The first is the first 5-year plan, the command economy. And the next is the Great Leap Forward campaign. Some people probably have heard a little bit about it. Dr. James Lindsay talked about that a lot. And then the last one is People's Commune campaign. Collectivize all the rural area. All the land they were given, now it's taken back by the state. So what happened in this campaign was a result of no one can challenge the madness and absurdity. Mao believed by using sheer manpower that China could industrialize and surpass United States and the United Kingdom. And by what? By steel production. So everybody was mobilized. Everybody, townspeople, peasants, they all mobilized to do one thing, produce steel. With what? With backyard furnaces. Absolutely insane. And so everybody was told to search through your household, get everything that's metal, and send it to the production team so that they can throw into the furnace and supposedly produce steel. Spoons, door handles, whatever was thrown in. And what happens, it comes out useless steel. And that campaign failed miserably. At the same time, the peasants were told, give up everything you're doing right now, like farm work, go make steel. Next. And at the same time, everything is collectivized. And private cooking and dining was banned. Everyone has to go to the commune dining hall, and it's called big dining. Okay, it's called free everything. It's not free. Where the food was from, it's collected from every household. The food, the crop, the livestock, the utensils, stools, and tables, everything was taken away from private homes and put together as a big dining hall and call it free. And people had a good time. And they were encouraged to eat as much as you can. And so they did until the food ran out. At the same time, the commune campaign was actually a campaign of lies, because people realize if you tell truth, you will be penalized. But if you tell lies, you'll be rewarded. So everybody was telling lies, and it was a competition from the local village to the central government. And then the second is the picture of a commune showing that their crop was so productive, and a rice field, a young girl can sit on it like a carpet. And of course, by the time in harvest, they have to give to the government the crop that they said they had, that they had so much of it. Actually, Mao was wondering, what do we do with all this surplus crop? And he was very creative. One of the things he said, we can make a lot of alcohols. But lie will eventually, you have to pay the debt for the lies you made. Famine. So from 1959 to 1962, big famine hit China, up to 50. Different numbers, because there's no official number from the CCP, you never get it. But different assessment, some estimated up to 50 million people starved to death. I was born during famine. I have no memory, of course, but I heard a lot of stories from my parents. They were the lucky ones. They were in the city. Most of the starvation took place in the countryside. So this is a big deal. Even in the communist country, even in the communist, the murderous regime, have that many people starved to death was a big deal. So Mao was forced to admit his mistake. In the 7,000 central high-level government meeting. And so he was forced to take a back seat. And then the country back at that time was running by the two important people, Liu Shaoqi, the president of China, and Deng Xiaoping, the vice premier. So their focus was to recover from the disaster by improving the economy. Can you imagine? Mao took a back seat and let his power go? No way. So that was 1962. He took the next few years, planned a big comeback. Next, in 1966, he launched the Great Proletarian Culture Revolution. And he told foreign visitors once that in his lifetime, he was very proud of two major achievements. The first was his revolution, overtaking the power from the nationalists and make China the communist country in 1949. The second was his culture revolution. But you know a little bit already. That is not all he did. He launched so many political campaigns, one after another. It was counted that he launched more than 50 political campaigns. Each one left millions of victims. But anyway, so now we are here. Culture revolution. Next. What's the goal of culture revolution? First, seize power. He did not really lose power, but he was not running the country. That was not good for him as a dictator. So the goal of the Cultural Revolution is to not just seize power, but establish his absolute power. That's what he was after, absolute power. And that's not it. He had another goal. He wanted to erase everything before him, any tradition, any ideology, any social values, anything, and establish Maoism as the only supreme belief system in China. So that was the two, it's just important to remember. Those are the two goals that he launched the Cultural Revolution. Next. So when you launch a revolution, you need revolutionaries. Who are the revolutionaries for Mao's Cultural Revolution? In his first revolution, he depended on peasants. He promised the peasants that he will give them free land. It was the peasants that put him in power in the first revolution. For his second revolution, he has a better way of getting his revolutionaries from his government schools. After 17 years of taking over this education system, he had an army of indoctrinated kids, and they will be his army for this revolution. And those kids, ranging from elementary school to college students, and they were called the Red Guards. And by now, you probably heard that a lot. And I think in America, finally, we have our own Red Guards, only that they're blue. So those are the students that he was mobilized. And how did he mobilize the students? There's no really effective communication system back then. Telephone was very scarce. And there's no Facebook, no Twitter, What he did was brilliant. First of all, he met the students in Tiananmen Square early in August of 1966. And there's the first Red Guards rally on Tiananmen Square with more than 1 million participants. He had 7 more after that. He had a total of 8 rallies for the Red Guards. And how did he get them all to Beijing? He issued free travel for Red Guards. All you need to do is have a Red Guard band. You can have a free train, free bus, free food, free lodging everywhere you go. And that's called the Big Link-Up. Why? He wants to mobilize the kids so that they can meet and connect and mobilize and motivate each other. So by the end of 1966, the whole country was mobilized. More than 10,000 youths become Red Guards, ready to take any order from their Red Commander-in-Chief, Chairman Mao. Next. So, what they're supposed to do? They have targets. What were their targets? Because Mao started this revolution for what? For power. So, think this way. It's kind of strange, but it is true. The Chinese Cultural Revolution was a revolution against CCP. It's a revolution against his own party because he felt like his party was no longer under his control. So the target were the CCP officials up, down the chain, from local village, to the central government. And anyone that has authority. And as a student, Who are the first one you would go after? Those people that have authority. Teachers, right? Teachers and school administrators, because they were condemned by Mao as bourgeois reactionary intellectual authorities, and they should go. So that's what the Red Guards went after first. The first killing in the Cultural Revolution was done by a group of young girls in the girls' middle school in Beijing. Who they killed? They killed their assistant principal. Young girls, 12 to 16. Yes, that is the beginning of the violence of the Cultural Revolution. And then they're going after anyone in authority. And of course, who were in charge of China back then? CCP officials. So they went after, as a little girl, I witnessed many struggle sessions, including the struggle session of the governor of my province, Li Jinquan. And so the Red Guards took him, and they found 2 really tall Red Guards, and to held him on the stage. And then they read all sorts of condemnation. I did not witness any beating for that particular struggle session, but he was beaten. He was struggled against multiple times, and along with his wife, who committed suicide. And his son was in the college back then. He just dared to defend his father. He was beaten and killed by the Red Guard. So, but don't feel sorry for him, because the same guy, the governor of my province, he oversaw many struggle sessions during the land reform, and he ordered many of the landowners being executed. So it all come back to him. And during the Great Leap Forward, my province, his province, had the highest death toll in China. 8 million Sichuanese peasants perished. But now it's back to him. That's communism. Okay, but the number one enemy of Mao was someone else. You probably guessed it. The president of China, Liu Shaoqi, because he was put in charge of the country's affairs after Mao was backseated. That's him, Liu Shaoqi. He had to go through, and his wife too, had to go through many struggle sessions, condemned. He was kicked out of the party and exiled. And he had a miserable death. Died alone, denied any medical treatment. And that's communism. Next. That's not only it, because a CCP official was only part of the target. The next is everything traditional. And like Michael already mentioned, the 4 oaths. By now, you probably hear more about it. That is a Mao-style cancel culture. 4 oaths. Old idea, old culture, old custom, and old habit. All have to go. All have to go. Statues have toppled, and books have to be burned, and names of the institutions, streets have to be changed. Sound familiar? Yes. And after they finish with everything in the public, they go to people's homes. So it's called the home raiding campaign. The Red Guards went home to home to find and destroy anything that's old. Vases, furniture, personal belonging, including correspondence and manuscript, whatever. That was the largest looting campaign ever took place in the history of China. Next. That's still not it. this is a revolution that is going to destroy everything, including social norms, things we take for granted, such as woman is a woman, man is a man. No, everything has to change. But they were not as creative as the radical here. So the family bond has to be destroyed. Children were taught to report their parents of any anti-communist or anti-party comment. This guy, his name is Zhang Hongbin. Hongbin means Red Guard. So he was one of those Red Guards, changed his own names into Red Guard. And so at 16, he reported his mother, who was making a complaint about the Cultural Revolution in the privacy was at their home. He reported to the party. 2 months later, his mother was executed. And this is not an isolated incident. It happened a lot. Family destroyed. Here we know, the left was after toxic masculinity, right? Mao was after toxic femininity. Why? Femininity is too bourgeois, too weak, not revolutionary enough. So that has to get away with. So we had Mao's iron girls, as seen in the picture in the middle. Man, we were taught, growing up, there's no difference between men and women. Whatever man can do, women can do it better. And so we grew up, look like a man, talk like a man, dress like a man, and we think we were men. Sounds familiar? And meritocracy, of course. They have to get rid of meritocracy. And so in the beginning of the Cultural Revolution, all universities were closed. When they finally opened in early 1970s, there's no examination, no admission tests. The qualification is your political standing. You have to be you have to be in the red class, and you have to be recommended by your party leader. That's the only qualification. In the first group of admission to the best university in China, Tsinghua University, about half of them only had elementary school education before they were admitted to college. Because Mao was not interested in education. He was interested in what? Indoctrination. He wanted to have his people come out of college, become a loyal follower of him. Okay, next. That's still not it. Mao wanted to destroy all CCP's institutions. Why would he want to destroy his own institutions? This is his institution. Because they're not radical enough. Not radical enough. That's the reason. So he destroyed the criminal justice system. The slogan was, abolish our criminal justice system. It's their version of defund police. What happened is police were told they could not fight back if they were hit by the Red Guards. And they were asked to stay away from any campuses. And in the beginning of the Cultural Revolution, that's where the violence took place. So eventually, more than 95% of the criminal justice system personnel were exiled. And there were some was just not even survived the Red Guards. So that's gone. That's gone. No, China became a country of lawlessness. Violence took place and chaos descended. Education system. It's his education system. But it's not radical enough and has to be totally destroyed. And so in the beginning, there was 12 years for public education, just like here, 12. Mao cut 2 years out. He said, what's the use of more education? More education is not any, it doesn't do anything. So he cut it into 10. So I only have 10 years of schooling, and out of that 10 years, I lost 2 years because in the beginning of the Cultural Revolution, schools were closed. Sounds familiar? Children here lost 2 years during the COVID. I only had 8 years of education, and one of those years was after we went back to school. And all the textbooks were banned because they were not good enough. They were not radical enough. For a whole year, we have one textbook. Guess what that is? Mao's Little Red Book. We read it from beginning to the end and back from beginning to end. That's our textbook. When finally the textbook came back to us, it is just basically everything, all the Marxist and the Maoism is injected in everything, mass everything. And that's happening here today in America as well. Because they're not interested in educating people. Their only goal is to indoctrinate them. Okay, the entertainment, art and the entertainment has to be totally radicalized. During the 10 years of Cultural Revolution, before the Cultural Revolution, CCP had made more than 400 movies and operas and all stuff. They are all deemed as poison weeds. They are all deemed as not politically correct enough, not radical enough. So during the Cultural Revolution, we had a total of 8 model plays. Plays. And so there are 2 ballets, there's some 2 ballets, and 6 Beijing opera. That's it. I probably watch all of us, like Lily. We know every line of it. That's all we had, 8 of them, because they were the correct ones. So everything has to be radicalized. And the military, totally radicalized. The soldiers were trained. The best weapon they had is not the actual weapon. The best weapon they had is Mao Zedong thought. That's the most powerful weapon. If you are armed with that right thought, you were unconquerable. Sounds familiar today? If you do DEI, our military will be unconquerable. Okay, next. Now everything was replaced. After the Cultural Revolution, everything old, everything before the Cultural Revolution has to go, and we have our new culture. And the new culture is a culture of rebellion, culture of violence, culture of chaos. That's Mao's slogan. Rebellion is justified. Just like today, the Antifa and BMM. Any problem? Go to street and burn the house, burn the buildings, and yeah, that is the new culture. Class struggle become the norm. Everything is class struggle. Just like here, everything is racism. Anything is class struggle, and we really lost. As growing up, I really don't even understand what class struggle is about, but it's class struggle. If someone is condemned, and we have a struggle session, and it's called class struggle. So it's a part of our culture. And the political correctness, my goodness. Everyone has to watch. Self-censor. Chinese become the master of self-censorship. We watch everything we say. We watch so much of what we say that everybody's telling lies. And nobody trusts another person, not even your spouse, not even your children. And the snitch culture becomes the norm. And that's coming here. Sadly, it's coming here. And of course, cult of personality. After all this, there's one winner. That's Mao. He effectively become our God. Next. So, what is Cultural Revolution? a cultural revolution is really a world turned upside down. As Mao wrote in his poem, he said, it is made me compassionate to see a world turned upside down. Yes, it was. And he turned our world, my world, Lily's world, upside down. Next. What was the consequence of the Cultural Revolution? The Chinese civilization was destroyed. Don't believe it that they are still there. The Confucian Institute, they want the world to see that they are the heir of Chinese civilization. They are not. They are the heir of Marxism. The Chinese civilization was destroyed. The institution dismantled. It took a long time to recover. The economy was in ruin. A whole generation of the Red Guards were lost. Future stolen from them. 20-some million lives lost through violence, persecution, and a huge, huge number of suicides. Okay. What's more important is the communist ideology was bankrupt. At the end of the Cultural Revolution, no one believed in communism anymore. So China was at the edge of total collapse. Next. Well, capitalism came to the rescue. After Mao's death, Deng Xiaoping took over China. He was a pragmatist. He said, in order to save CCP and save his power, he came up with this doctrine. No matter white cat or black cat, as long as a cat mouse is a good cat. So he ushered in the so-called reform. He opened China up and welcomed the Western investment, and because that is the only way he can save China. But he never hid his true intention. He had 4 basic principles, and the principle was uphold socialism, uphold proletarian dictatorship, uphold communist leadership, and uphold Marxism, Leninism, and Mao Zedong thought. He never even hid that he became a capitalism. No, he was a communist through and through. He was keep China through, communist through and through. And in 1989, he brutally crushed the pro-democracy student movement in Tiananmen Square when the whole world was watching. But the greedy and corrupted Western politicians and corporations, some naively believe, some pretend they believe that China is going to open up and transform itself into a capitalist country. They are trying to, they did it because their own greed. And after decades of engagements with China, what happened? China never changed. China killed democracy that came with the open up in its infancy. On the other hand, Western world become more and more like China and become more and more authoritarian. Next. So this is where China today. After all that, China transformed itself and become the most powerful threat that the West has ever faced. Next. After all that, communism was not not only it was not defeated, it became mainstream in America. And that's where we are today. And that's why we have to fight to save this country. Thank you.